Dina Leitner was born in the northern part of New York State in 1969. Her parents, Bob and Connie, divorced when she was only 5 years old. Dina loved to travel and went with her grandmother and grandfather to Bermuda, throughout Florida, and to the West Coast. But from a very early age, fate proved merciless to her. During a family vacation in the Caribbean, 8-year-old Dina was trying on hats. Not a single one fit her, not even an adult size. Dina was diagnosed with hydrocephalus, commonly known as water on the brain. This is a serious condition caused by an excessive accumulation of cerebrospinal fluid within the cranial cavity. It creates enormous pressure on the brain and can lead to headaches, double vision, impaired coordination, and cognitive disorders. In infants, this condition often causes an increase in head size. Without treatment, hydrocephalus leads to irreversible brain damage and death. After the diagnosis, Dina underwent 4 surgeries to drain fluid from her brain. For much of that time, she had a shaved head, and her classmates relentlessly bullied her. She sought comfort from her mother and was completely dependent on her love and support. In total, Dina underwent 8 surgeries to install shunts, tubes that divert fluid from the brain to the heart and the abdominal cavity. All of this happened before she turned 13 years old. Although middle school and high school were not easy for her, Dina spent an entire year on the cheerleading team and played the flute in the school band. Connie remarried, and the new family of 3 moved to Houston, Texas. Dina graduated from Kingwood High School in Houston in 1987 and then enrolled at Marist College in Poughkeepsie, New York, where she studied psychology with the intention of earning a master's degree. During her sophomore year, she met her future husband, John Schlosser. It took John an entire year to work up the courage to ask her out on a date. Although they liked each other very much, it can hardly be said that John entered this relationship with the right intentions. The young man took tuition money from his future in-laws, neglected his studies, and never obtained a degree. Moreover, John went so far as to organize a fake graduation party, which was quickly exposed. Dina's mother divorced her second husband and moved to Chicago around 1989. Dina and John soon followed her. In 1990, Dina's mother married for the 3rd time to Mick McCauley, who worked as a psychotherapist. In 1991, Dina and John got married. Mick described them as a very close and very emotionally attached couple with a touch of romance. Dina earned a bachelor's degree in psychology from Northern Illinois University in 1992. But even with a degree, she could not keep a single job. She quit VIAs because customers were rude to her. She walked out in the middle of a shift at Ameritrade because a client lied to her. She quit her job at a nursing home because she did not like the way patients were treated. Eventually, John decided that Dina should not work at all. However, John's situation was no better. For years, he refused to take jobs if they did not match his interests in the information technology field. One example was when a close friend arranged a stable office job for him at Hitachi in Dallas. John refused because he wanted to become the head of the information technology department immediately, a position for which he was completely unprepared. The Schlossers moved into subsidized housing, which Dina's biological father, Bob Leitner, helped them obtain. During this time, Dina experienced 3 miscarriages, and the couple greatly feared that they would never have children. However, in 1995, Dina gave birth to their first daughter, Brianna, and in 1997 to their second daughter, Kelsey. In 2000, the Schlossers moved into a large house in Fort Worth, Texas, where John found an excellent job in the information technology field with a 6-figure salary. Dina stayed home with their 2 daughters, but the couple's life was far from ideal. Dina suffered from mild postpartum depression, which she treated with medication. However, after feeling improvement, she decided that she had recovered and discontinued the medication on her own. John eventually quit his dream job to pursue freelance work in information technology consulting. Everything went completely differently than he had expected, and the couple soon began to experience serious financial problems. Left without work and with their home facing foreclosure, the family packed their belongings and moved into a small apartment in West Plano, Texas in 2002. John and Dina were raised Catholic, but were never deeply involved in the church. In 2002, the Schlossers began attending a fundamentalist church called Lifewater Ministry after Dina learned about it from a neighbor. The church was led by a former veterinarian-turned-preacher named Doyle Davidson, who claimed that God appeared to him in visions. According to his website, Doyle served as a United States Navy corpsman during the Korean War, spending 27 months in Yokosuka, Japan. After returning to the United States, he became one of 30 students accepted into the University of Missouri College of Veterinary Medicine in 1958. In August, shortly before the start of his studies, while changing a tire on his car, he claimed that he felt the presence of God and heard the voice of the Lord saying, "I do not want you to be a veterinarian. I want you to be a minister of the gospel." He did not obey God that day and continued his education as a veterinarian. After graduating from the university, Doyle moved to North Texas and opened a successful veterinary clinic specializing in the treatment of horses. In 1968, according to him, God entered his life, and for 2 years an angel of the Lord rode in his car, reminding him that it was time to finally begin preaching the gospel. In 1969, the Lord commanded him to close his business and fulfill his calling, and on January 2, 1970, he sold the clinic. Doyle was more of a cult leader than a true pastor. To better understand what kind of person he was, he preached that one of the victims of the infamous Columbine High School massacre could have been saved if that person had had more faith. He also had a strange fixation on women. It seemed that he simply hated them. Doyle also believed that the spirit of Jezebel controlled the city of Plano. He taught that this spirit possessed women, who then tempted men with their indecent behavior. In the Bible, Jezebel was a Phoenician princess of the 9th century before Christ who married Ahab, the prince of Israel. Eventually, they ruled as king and queen, and Jezebel continued to worship the fertility god Baal. Her subjects and the prophet of Yahweh, Elijah, despised such actions. Preparing for execution at the hands of the general Jehu, she put on makeup and dressed in her finest clothes before being thrown from a balcony to be devoured by dogs. In August 1987, Doyle stated that God spoke to him directly. According to Doyle, God told him that a woman from his congregation named Lisa Staton now belonged to him. The only problem was that Lisa already had a husband named J.R., and Doyle himself had been married to Petty Tinkle since 1952. Different news sources present different versions of the story. Some claim that Doyle and Lisa had been carrying on an affair for years. Others say that Lisa and J.R. ran away from him. Some claim that both versions are true, and that Lisa wanted to break things off with Doyle. It was also reported that an intoxicated Doyle was caught in the Statons' home while attempting to cast the devil out of Lisa, and he was arrested over this incident. Either way, Doyle appears unable to stop talking about Lisa, and regularly launches into hateful tirades about her in his sermons, on his website, and in threatening letters to the unfortunate woman and her husband. Islishnik says that as the Schlossers became more deeply immersed in Doyle's teachings, their family life grew increasingly worse. They found the church even before moving to West Plano, and were so captivated by Doyle that they traveled 120 miles round trip to listen to his sermons. The preacher explained all failures as a lack of faith, removing personal responsibility from people. As a result, Dina began to wonder whether her family's financial problems were due to her weak faith. At the same time, John came to believe that evil spirits had attached themselves to Dina. He began to treat her like an object rather than a person and demanded complete submission. In reality, Dina was suffering from a severe mental disorder. However, Doyle preached that mental illnesses were demonic possession and that psychiatric medications were witchcraft. As a result, Dina did not receive the help she desperately needed. Congregants prayed, attempting to cure her mental illness through prayer. The family attended church sometimes as many as 6 evenings a week and twice on Sundays. At times, services stretched far past 10 o'clock at night, and Brianna and Kelsey were left hungry. When the Schlossers arrived in Texas, they tried to persuade Dina's mother to join Lifewater Ministry. Concerned by Dina's state of mind, Connie met with Doyle Davidson. The daughter believed that she could heal her mother of Parkinson's disease. Of course, nothing came of it. There are no official sources confirming the following story. However, since several publications present it as fact, I decided to mention it. Allegedly, when Connie was taken to the airport, someone stole her Parkinson's medication from her bag. It is presumed that this was done by Dina, who believed that her mother had been healed and no longer needed the pills. Unable to move, Connie missed her flight. She allegedly sat motionless, having urinated and defecated on herself for an entire day and night, until someone attentive in the terminal noticed that she was not moving at all. That person then found the remaining pills hidden in her luggage, which helped Connie move again. This story raises doubts for several reasons. Although it seems unlikely, if it is true, it demonstrates the degree of irrational belief in the teachings of Doyle Davidson so strong that Dina was willing to endanger the safety of her own mother. On January 9, 2004, Dina gave birth to another baby girl named Margaret, whom they called Maggie. The baby was born at home with the assistance of a midwife because the Schlossers did not have medical insurance. Although the pregnancy was a singleton, Dina was convinced that she had given birth to twins and that the male twin had died. The following day, Dina was reading the Bible when, according to her, the word "cut off" literally jumped out at her from the page. Mentally exhausted and overwhelmed by the birth of the child, Dina attempted to take her own life. Instead of taking his wife to the hospital, John covered her wounds with adhesive bandages and insisted on keeping her at home, believing that prayer would completely heal her. 5 days later, Child Protective Services intervened in the Schlosser case. The agency began its investigation after Dina was seen running down the street screaming, while her daughter Kelsey was chasing after her on a bicycle. Meanwhile, the baby Maggie was left unattended at home in her crib. The eldest, Brianna, was at school. When Child Protective Services workers questioned Dina, she claimed that cartoon characters on the television screen were laughing at her. She was referring to Disney's The Little Mermaid. Dina was admitted to Green Walk Psychiatric Hospital, where she was diagnosed with bipolar disorder and postpartum psychosis. After the diagnosis was made, the psychiatrist strongly recommended that Dina continue treatment. Dina wanted to receive help, but her husband John refused. He stated that he had prayed about it and decided that the best and safest place for his wife was at home with the children. Child Protective Services ruled that Dina could not be left alone with the children, so John's sister moved in with the family. Despite John's dismissive attitude toward medical treatment, Dina began taking Ativan and haloperidol, and the situation appeared to be improving, although the Schlossers were convinced that it was actually prayer that was healing Dina. After the hospitalization, Child Protective Services conducted regular checks on Dina and her family. Over time, the visits became less frequent until the agency decided to close the case entirely in August 2000. John found a job and began leaving his wife alone with the children without supervision. By this time, Dina had reportedly stopped taking her medication. Soon her condition began to deteriorate again. She hissed and made animal-like sounds toward people. On November 21, 2004, Dina told John that she wanted to give her daughter to God. Specifically, she meant giving Maggie to Doyle Davidson. The fact is that Doyle was a creepy pervert and, like many false prophets, tried to marry young girls. At that time, Doyle was 72 years old. Nevertheless, Dina dressed Maggie and showed her to John, who was considerably alarmed by this. As a form of punishment, John spanked Dina with a wooden spoon in front of the daughters. On the same day, Dina and her parents spoke by telephone about Doyle. Mig claimed that the stepdaughter sounded more defiant on the phone than before, and Connie noticed euphoria in Dina's voice. Mig told her, "If we do not believe in Doyle as fanatically as you do, we cannot remain close, right?" Dina responded with one word, "Agreed." The following day began as usual. John went to work, and the two older girls, who were then 9 and 6 years old, went to school. For the last 3 days and 3 nights, Dina obsessively pondered the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 5, verse 30, which in some translations reads, "If your right hand causes you to stumble, cut it off and throw it from you, for it is better for you that one of your members perish, and not your whole body be thrown to the hyenas." Then everything went terribly wrong. With loud Christian music playing, Dina took a 9-inch kitchen knife and began cutting Maggie's arms off her body, and then eventually turned the knife on herself. She attempted to cut off her own arm but stopped after cutting herself too deeply. Dina called John and said that she had injured their daughter, after which she abruptly hung up. Not knowing what to do, John first called Doyle Davidson, who allegedly instructed him to call the Child Learning Center where Dina had worked before Maggie's birth. Carolyn Thomas answered the phone at 11:50 a.m. On the line was a frantic John, saying that Dina had told him she had injured their child. Carolyn asked several questions but ultimately decided to call Dina herself. Carolyn had worked with Dina for 2 years and considered her to be a good mother. However, the tone of John's voice led her to believe that Dina might have experienced another psychotic episode. Dina answered the phone when Carolyn called. In the background, the hymn, "He Touched Me," was playing, and Dina greeted her in a very calm and composed voice. Carolyn asked what she had done to the child. Dina replied, "I killed her." According to reports, emergency services received a call from one of Carolyn's colleagues, which prompted dispatchers to call Dina directly. The mother calmly informed 911 dispatcher Steve Edwards that she had cut off her daughter's arms and then quietly waited in the living room for the police to arrive. Maggie was lying in her crib in the back bedroom. According to Plano police officer David Tilley, she had an ashen gray skin tone and her arms were missing. There was a large amount of blood. She was rushed to the hospital, but for Maggie, it was already too late. Unfortunately, Maggie suffered terribly in her final moments. In addition to losing both arms, she sustained approximately 50 cuts on her face while struggling for her life. She was only 11 months old. Dina sat at the computer desk, reading the Bible and humming Christian hymns. Some reports claim that she met the officer still holding the bloodied knife. Other sources state that the knife was found sticking out of her shoulder. The mother told the police that she was responsible for the injuries, but did not go into further details. She was taken into custody and charged with first-degree murder. Several hours after the arrest, police heard her continuously repeating, "Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Lord." During the trial, the issue was raised that Dina had not received the help she so clearly needed. John had not been regularly filling her haloperidol prescriptions due to his extreme religious beliefs. Doyle Davidson was also present at the trial and stated that he believed mental illnesses were demonic possession. He also claimed that, although Dina and John had been regular congregants of his church, he did not know them very well. Which is rather strange, considering that alleged phone records show that John and Doyle spoke on the phone several times a day. Due to public outrage following the trial, Doyle's televised ministry was canceled everywhere outside the Dallas-Fort Worth area. But this changed little, because at the time of writing, Lifewater Ministry still exists on YouTube and other platforms. Psychologist Dave Self evaluated Dina after her arrest. She told him that she had been watching the news when a disturbing story aired. The story was about a boy who had been attacked by a lion. Somehow, Dina interpreted this as a sign of the apocalypse. She then said that she heard God instructing her to cut off her daughter's arms. She was convinced that an evil spirit named Jezebel was fully controlling Maggie. She claimed that she did what she was meant to do. Dave Self determined that Dina was suffering from postpartum psychosis. The first trial ended with the jury unable to reach a verdict. In April 2006, she was ultimately found not guilty by reason of insanity. Dina was committed to the North Texas State Hospital in Vernon, where she was ordered to remain until she no longer posed a threat to herself or others. John underwent a psychological evaluation after his 2 remaining children were taken into foster care by Child Protective Services. He was diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder, and it was determined that he had failed to protect his children from their mother. Child Protective Services allowed John to regain custody of Brianna and Kelsey on the condition that his sister live with him. John agreed and later divorced Dina. As part of the divorce, Dina was prohibited from having contact with John or their daughters. On November 6, 2008, State District Judge Chris Oldner announced that Dina would be released under outpatient supervision. As part of her release, she was required to see a psychiatrist once a week, take prescribed medications, use doctor-approved treatments, and have no unsupervised contact with the children. If she failed to comply with these conditions, the judge had the authority to return her to the hospital. This is exactly what happened. In April 2010, Dina was committed to Torrell State Hospital after firefighters in Richardson, Texas saw her walking down the street at 2:00 a.m. in an obviously distressed state. She was seen screaming and singing religious songs at the top of her voice. Dina was later released again under outpatient supervision. She remained out of the public eye until 2012, when a Walmart customer took a photo of a cashier whose face seemed familiar to him. The cashier was Dina, and she was fired within a few hours. WFAA, a television station in Dallas, reported that she had been working under her maiden name. The news quickly spread across the internet, and local residents expressed outrage that Walmart had employed someone who had committed such a crime. As of December 2020, Dina was ordered to remain in a psychiatric hospital. John and his daughters continued to lead what appeared to be a normal life in Texas. On December 13, 2014, John married a woman named Michelle. His younger daughter, Kelsey, got married in 2021, and the older sister, Brianna, served as a bridesmaid. On October 1, 2022, John Schlosser suffered a major heart attack and was admitted to the intensive care unit. He passed away on October 3rd after life support was withdrawn. His funeral took place on October 8th at the First Baptist Church of Weatherford. His ashes were scattered at sea during a carnival cruise in December. This was meant to be a vacation in celebration of the couple's 8th wedding anniversary. In a social media post, his wife wrote, "John Schlosser, today you are so close. I scattered your ashes over the ocean that you loved so much. You are here now. My heart is breaking into pieces. But at the same time, I feel peace. I love you. I miss you. Sail on, my dear, forever yours."